Okay, so we've got pretty much a full house now. So the ones who aren't here, the empty seats, those are the ghosts. We always like to have ghosts come in as well. So you've got an empty seat next to you, there might be a ghost. Thank you. But anyway, it's supposed to be the talk now, am I correct?
Yes, that's right, Ajahn.
Okay, and then afterwards questions and answers.
Yes, right. Thank you.
Thank you, yeah. So the talk this evening, they said, was supposed to be on the stream winning and how it works and how to get there. And that's kind of a deeper talk that I've usually given when I come here. And when I say a deeper talk, I still remember that one of the BF's presidents, when I first started coming to Singapore, once asked me, he said, Ajahn Brahm, can you please give a deep talk on Buddhism tonight? He'd heard all the talks about the 2 bad bricks in the wall and open the door of your heart and all the jokes. And he was a lawyer. And anyway, I said, okay, I'll give a deep talk. And it was on like non-self. And the next morning he picked me up from, I think I was staying at the Thai temple. He picked me up to take me out to breakfast. And the first thing he said was, Ajahn Brahm, don't do that again, please. I did give a deep talk and he hadn't slept all night. It was challenging for him. But I don't mind challenging people, simply because when you have to talk about stream winning, it is a very powerful subject, and it will challenge many of the ways you look at the world. So please be ready for this. And first of all, the way this world works, at least talking in Singapore is sometimes better than talking in places like Australia or even UK. You have some idea of this thing we call samsara and rebirth, reincarnation, doesn't matter what you wish to call it. And that is something really powerful. When I was a young man, it was something I kind of was obvious to me that people get reincarnated. And it seems that sometimes people die when they're young, they're not really finished yet. And even if you are, you have a driving test and you fail, you always have another chance to do it again. If you have some course which you fail, you can always, go back to school and take the course again. The idea that you only have one go at life never made sense to me. But not only that, there was just too much evidence. I was a scientist. I trained as a scientist. Beliefs didn't count when there was hard evidence to show there was something else going on. And many of you, these days especially, you can go to these hypnotherapists. Not all of you will be able to get a past life from a hypnotherapy, but some people do. And they can check those lives out from the past. And when they do, they just get so surprised. We had one of our presidents of our Buddhist Society of Western Australia try some hypnotherapy. He did that just to check out the hypnotist and make sure he was trustworthy, because he had a brother who was in a lot of difficulty and thought that may be one possibility to help him. So this man sort of made an appointment and went under hypnotherapy. And he said that he was a most unlikely candidate. He was in the Army Reserve. He was a big businessman in Perth, and he was just had to do some training in case there was a terrorist attack in Perth. And it was just an exercise for 2 or 3 days, and he hardly slept for those 2 or 3 days. And then at the end of the 3 days, he had to go to the hypnotherapist. He was exhausted, but still alert. So he was put under hypnosis, and he got a past life. And this past life really shocked him. It's not what he expected at all. In his past life, he was born in Ireland. There was no Northern Ireland or Southern Ireland then. His family were extremely poor, and the only way to get out of poverty was to accept this job for the British Raj, sent to Australia as a prison officer. It was a terrible job, but his only way, he also hated the British as well, because he was Irish. And it was just because of what the British had done in Ireland at the time. And so he took the job, came to Australia, had all his recollections, which he didn't know where they came from, such as the pub in Fremantle where he met his wife, the place which after 2 or 3 years of service that they gave him in the southwest of West Australia, where he built his first house out of stone. He built it himself. About all of his kids, their names, their places. And of course, this was just under hypnosis, but it was all recorded. And when he came out of hypnosis, he was told to remember this. And of course he could. The notes were taken down, it was recorded. So he went to the library. And this was only 100 years ago, 150 years ago. All those records should be there. You can imagine how you would feel when you found a record of the man you thought was you was in the library. It was real. He saw the marriage license of his former wife. I mean, really ex-wife, former life wife. And him. The pub where they met. The place where they got their first piece of land granted when the government was trying to develop that part of Australia. And the house, the stone house, which he built with his own hands. And he went down to visit. You can imagine what that must be like. This was a place you lived over 100 years ago. And the farmer thought they were crazy. But when he told him that the place which the farmer said, this is your old house, the old stone house, he said, no, it's not. The house I built was up on that hill over there. And that's where the farmer got very embarrassed. He said, I destroyed that house because it was in the way of good pasture. But that was an illegal act because that was a very old house which had been said by the government should never be destroyed. It was historic. And he even knew where his grave was. The last time I saw him, he hadn't visited that grave yet. Imagine you visiting the grave where you lived, where you were buried in your previous life. And that's pretty spooky. But you know, as a result of that, he said he was in the Army Reserve before. So, you know, he would have drinks with his friends. He said from that time on, once he realized that this was true, he had to keep the 5 precepts. He had to. Because he knew just how powerful they were for making sure that if you do have when you do have a future life, it's a good life. But I just mention that because this is like our situation. We call it samsara. This is how we, life after life after life after life. Most of them won't be in this human realm, especially now, because there's so many human beings available. It's like rooms in a hotel. In the time of the Buddha, there was hardly any rooms. The population was small. So it's hard to get a human birth. Now there's lots. But nevertheless, what birth are you going to get in your next life? Sometimes people can remember things. Here in Singapore, I once gave a talk in one of the hospitals here. It was on like terminal, how we die, and how we can care for people when they're dying. But part of that, I introduced a term which is reasonably well known in palliative care, which is called terminal lucidity. Terminal lucidity is when a person is about to die, and they may have been in a coma for a long time, they may have had dementia, they may not have even recognized you when you come in the room. And then these last, from 5 minutes to an hour of their life, they remember everything. And there's no way that should be possible. Their brain is totally dysfunctional. And I remember just in this room of palliative care doctors and nurses, I asked, how many of you have experienced that? One of your patients, totally non-communicative for a long time because they're drugged to their eyeballs with morphine, or they're in a coma, or they've just got brain damage. How many of you have witnessed them like opening their eyes and being very clear and speak clearly just before they die? And about a third of the doctors and nurses that put their hand up, they'd experienced that. It's something which is real. That terminal lucidity is when your brain doesn't function anymore and the mind takes over. And this mind, what you access in hypnosis, what you access through meditation, can remember things which your brain just cannot remember. Just like who you were before. But in a way which is very clear. So it is not impossible to actually to prove that this is not your first life. You have lived before. And many of you may have seen or had those experiences of meeting somebody. I often say this about the love at first sight. I don't know any of you have had that experience, love at first sight. You see somebody and then, this is my wife for this life, this is my husband. It's weird, I'm not being romantic, I'm just saying, how on earth does that happen? And of course, it's not love at first sight. It's here we go again. And you're very happy for that to happen. You haven't finished with your time together. And it's weird that sometimes it's not always that was your wife in the past life and you marry her again in this life. Sometimes you even swap roles. You were the wife in the last life, now you're the husband. These experiences is often how we learn. And so little by little we do find there's heaps and heaps of evidence, and it just makes so much sense, to me anyway, that it's almost like provable that past lives exist. And what does that mean, for you as a Buddhist or as just someone interested? We have what we call the big picture. Not one life, but many lives. Not many lives, but a huge number of lives. Now, I do confess I don't usually watch any movies, but I remember traveling to Singapore once, and one of these people I respect said they'd just come back from Singapore, and they said there's a movie on the Singapore Airlines flight called Groundhog Day. He said I should look at that. And I'm glad I did, because it gave me some information which you could relate to so many lives. This was a story, it was Hollywood, it was not accurate, but at least it said one thing about this man, the star of the movie, who would wake up on the same morning. He'd go through one day, and when he went to bed or whatever happened, he'd wake up and he'd have to repeat the same morning again. Now, how would you think that would happen? What would it do to you? What is today? Today is Friday. Friday the 9th of June. Imagine you went to sleep tonight and you woke up on the morning of Friday the 9th of June. I had to get to Perth Airport and fly again to Singapore. And it was wonderful, just some of the Dhamma from that movie, that first of all, you just want to improve your performance to make Friday the 9th of June better than it was before. And keep improving it, get more out of it. But how many times do you have to do that? And after a while, this gentleman, I forget who his name was, the actor, he got so bored and fed up living the same day again and again and again, even though he perfected it. So bored that he tried to commit suicide. He would drive the car off the cliff, and it would fall off the cliff and go boom. And then he'd wake up again on the morning of Friday the 9th of June. Whatever he did, he could not kill himself. Well, he did kill himself, he just woke up again the same morning. It was like an idea of reincarnation. Only we don't remember much of what happened in the past. Now, when a person really understands what I'm talking about there, you realize that this thing which we call life, as a girl, as a boy, as LGBTQAI+, and I respect everybody, people with dementia, so with maybe schizophrenia or any other mental illnesses, people with deformities, who lost a leg or who've got some other growths on their body which makes them look a bit weird. All of those things. Sometimes we think we don't want those. I think there's something gone wrong. When we understand what's really going on, we realize that this could be your next life. Once you understand a next life, sometimes I used to think that someone like a Donald Trump in his next life will have to be born as a Mexican. Won't be able to get into the United States. In other words, just to learn what life is really about. But after a while, how much can you learn? And after a while, is this it? Is there no escape, from samsara? You try to make it as best you possibly can. And many of you sitting in front of me have done an incredible job, of surviving, many difficulties in Singapore, getting a place to stay, reasonably good health, and good family. Sometimes people die. And it reminds you of how uncertain life is. These things happen. You can't stop it. We all have to go one day. And after a while, we think, yes, I know we all have to go, but why now? I was saying even today to somebody that I work very hard, even though as a monk you think you can have a nice, easy life. This is my 72nd year on this planet. 49 years as a monk and 49 years working for the same corporation. Long service, I'd never got long service leave. No retirement plan. No extra benefits. Usually, just the longer you serve, you get promotion, you get more money. I don't get more money, I get more work. But of course, that's not how you look at it. You don't look at it what you get out of this. You look at what you can give. In monastic Buddhist life, we look at it a totally different way. How much we can give and how much I can disappear. Say one of the best books which has got my name on it is The Art of Disappearing. And I mention this because this is part of the path of being a stream winner. Ajahn Chah would always tell me, and he would say it so often, I thought I couldn't understand it at first. That was one of the great things about being with a great monk like an Ajahn Chah. He said many things which I rejected. But somehow or other they got in my brain and I can never forget them. One of the things he would always say, that even when you are meditating not to attain things. You're meditating to let go of things, to disappear, for things to vanish, for things to go. So if any of you go on a retreat with me, I'd always tell you on that retreat, remembering what I was taught, you don't say what you've attained on this retreat. Instead, you measure your success by how much has disappeared, how much you've lost, how much greed, hatred and delusion have disappeared, how much worry about the past, how many stupid desires about the future you've lost, how all those things about the worries of the past and the future, the worries about your reputation, worries about your ego, how much that's disappeared. This is another Buddhism which Ajahn Chah taught me. See how you can disappear. Which is one of the reasons why when you talk about stream winning, it's not something you attain. It's a sign that you're disappearing, you're vanishing. So your sense of self is going, and with that, the times you're going to get reborn in this realm. Basically, you've had enough. You don't need to be reborn anymore. You can start to disappear. That's one of the reasons why in that particular book, once it was written, and once it was published, they asked me to write the foreword to the book. And writing a foreword to a book, you can actually sit down and write something egotistical and proud. And instead of doing that, I didn't have much time, so I just sat down and just on the computer wrote something in about 15 minutes. And I sent it off to Wisdom Publications in the US, and I said, I know you're not going to like this, I'll write something else later. And they said, no, we love it, great. And that's a foreword there. And in that foreword, I said that the purpose of this book is to teach everybody how to vanish and disappear, how their sense of self, all that they own, all they possess, all your intelligence, your experience, all of that can vanish. So you can be totally light and free. How you can become a nobody. In this world, if you call someone a nobody, then that's a word of abuse. But now these days, if someone calls me a loser, I say, yes, You understand? That's what monks are. Isn't that the case, Ajahn Brahm? We're losers. We lost so much, so many burdens, so much suffering. There used to be a program apparently on TV called The Biggest Loser. Do they have something like that in Singapore? Yeah, Biggest Loser. Who was the biggest loser? The Lord Buddha. He lost all of his attachments, all of his desire, all of his suffering. He was the biggest loser. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You see, we're looking at this life in a totally different way. Not to gain more, but to lose more. Those who picked me up from the airport today, how much baggage did I have? When I arrived, I did have another bag, which we'll find out tomorrow what was in it. You know, you asked me to carry this. This is some things for auction tomorrow. But also, just one bag, one little yarn, they call it. And that bag is like, go all over the world with that bag. That's all I have. And I always remember just how the Buddha taught. He said, monks, be like a bird. Fly from place to place, only carrying the weight of your wings. That's a very powerful simile. I've looked up in the sky. I've never ever seen a bird going overseas with a suitcase and a backpack. That's why they can fly so lightly. And I try to do that as best I possibly can, because that's actually inspiring. It's great when you go through airports. And often they say, sir, you haven't picked up your baggage. I say, this is my baggage. This is all I've got. I said, how come? Because I'm a monk. You know, these aren't Buddhists, but they're impressed. That's how a Buddhist should teach by example. Having few things. When you have few things, well, life is so much easier. So we're here to see how much of a loser we can be. When you're a loser, when you don't own things, you're getting closer and closer and closer to being a stream winner. If you have lots and lots of things and you fall in the stream, you drown. The less you have, the more you float. So this is one of the reasons why we have these so-called 4 stages of enlightenment. And the first stage of enlightenment is the stream winner. I won't go into depth about what that stream winner is, but there is one of the similes which the Buddha gave, which is so easy to understand. And it was a story of the shipwrecked sailors. And of these shipwrecked sailors, in the sutras, they don't call it shipwrecked, they were just men in the middle of the ocean. And I often thought, I remember having an argument with Bhikkhu Bodhi about that. I said, look, how come they're in the ocean? They must have been shipwrecked. No, they didn't fall from an aircraft in those days. So, shipwrecked sailors. The first shipwrecked sailor, actually I'm just doing the last 4, the last 5. The first shipwrecked sailor can float. He doesn't sink into the ocean. And they say that's a simile that you've got some good virtue and some good karma. So in the difficulties of life, in the storms of life, that you don't sink, you don't drown, you manage to keep afloat. And I like that simile because so many of you are really good people, you're kind people, you're virtuous people. Yeah, you have some faults, but they're not that big. And remember, just some monks do have psychic powers, so be careful when you come and talk to some monks. We know what's going on. But it doesn't really matter, it's just small stuff. You may think it's big, but it's small. You're keeping your head above water. metaphorically. And once you can keep your head above water, metaphorically, then if you're in the middle of the ocean, you look around. And as you're looking around, you can see in the distance dry land. Imagine, that's you in the ocean. You're, above the water. You're not sinking, but you're looking and looking. How can you escape? You see dry land in the distance. They call that the simile for being a stream winner. You've seen safety. Once you've seen safety, what would you do? Swim towards it, yes. Just seeing is being the stream winner. Swimming towards it is being called a once returner. And after you've been a once returner, as you swim closer and closer to the shore, you get to that point where you don't need to swim anymore. You can stand and feel something solid under your feet. You're so close to the shore, you can stand in the surf and wade the rest of the way to the shore. That's being called a non-returner, so close. And then when you get to the shore, you're safe, you're on dry land. And that's called being fully enlightened. And there's many points to that. The first point is once you see the dry land, it's not something which just grows on you slowly. It's an event, something which happens. It could be through a talk. It could be through your meditation. But when you actually see, now I understand what this life is all about and what the problem is. And then once you see the safety, then you start swimming. And the closer and closer you get, and you're so close, you become what they call the non-returner. And then after the non-returner, then you're fully enlightened. And it happens automatically. You cannot not swim once you've seen this dry land there. That's one of also the reasons why once a person is is a stream winner, then you have to get enlightened. You can't stop it. It's how many people would stop when they're in the middle of the ocean, close to death, and there's land over there? Of course you'd swim towards it. And it's usually 6 more lives before you become fully enlightened. Did I get that right? 6 more lives? I thought it was 7 more lives. That's right, this life is number 1. 6 more lives. So anyhow, one of the other great things about being a stream winner, which it can be weird for many people to understand, but once you understand it, you get much more detail about what it actually is as a stream winner. Anyone who has become a stream winner will no longer ever get rebirth in a lower realm, no matter what they've done. They cannot get reborn as an animal. They cannot get reborn as a ghost. They cannot go to the hell realms anymore. All those lower realms have been cut off from them. And that was always something which I thought at first was kind of unfair, isn't it? All that karma you don't have to pay off anymore. But that's very, very true. It's one of the reasons why in Buddhism we never have, in the Sangha anyway, the idea of punishment. Instead, the Buddha would always say, and it's something which I couldn't understand why, but I was very inspired with, if anyone makes a mistake, which really hurts somebody else, all they do is acknowledge they made a mistake. ask forgiveness and learn from it. That way you actually become a better human being. Is there anybody in this audience right now who's never made a mistake in their past? Can I assume from that you've all made mistakes? Of course you have. So how can we benefit from mistakes? We learn from them. And how can we truly learn? We have to acknowledge them, not hide them, not feel a lesser person because you have made a mistake. And that way, when you do make a mistake, you grow and it never happens again. You never feel you need to be punished. Even, I know I get into trouble for saying such things, but even some of the people who've done some terrible things to others, if they could only admit what they've done, honestly, and get forgiveness, they will never ever do that again. I've collected many stories like that. Just an ordinary story, not extreme. There was a couple who come to our monastery once a week, and then she was, getting on in the years, 40 or 50 years of age, him too. And when she was taking his jacket to the cleaners to get dry cleaned, she noticed there was a piece of paper in one of the pockets. The piece of paper was a receipt from the local brothel. She found out that her husband was visiting prostitutes. And now, if you have been married to somebody for quite a few years and you found out that, what would you do? She said, I cannot trust him anymore. And they talked to me for over an hour over in Bodhinyana Monastery in Perth. He was saying, look, I'm stupid, I still love you, I still love her, she told to me. But I will never do it again, I promise. And she said, no, it has to be separation, divorce. I cannot trust you anymore. Look what you've done. And to me, that wasn't Buddhist at all. No forgiveness. Visiting other women, the prostitutes, that wasn't Buddhist either. But then I talked the woman into forgiving him. But it wasn't just ordinary forgiveness. It was forgiveness plus probation. I said, yes, she cannot trust you. You have to earn that trust, re-earn it. And I said, the rules of probation are for the next 6 months, husband, you have to let your wife know exactly where you are, let her know all your passwords, and be able to give you a call at any time, and to check where you are. Probation for 6 months. And he agreed on that. And he did that. And that was quite a few years ago now. And they still come to Bodhinyana Monastery once a week. And they're very thankful. He made a terrible mistake which really hurt someone. But she understood how powerful it is to forgive. As long as the other person learns from that and never does it ever again. That's one of the great things which we could do. It's one of the great things we do for even, I will let you know this, even our retreats. I think I've said this in the Friday night talks, it's online. To make a point and also to help me in a problem I had, that on one of the meditation retreats that our cook. We couldn't find a cook to cook for the 9-day retreat. So I asked this other gentleman, you know him, Ajahn Mudita, that was Carl. And Carl was a great cook. He worked so hard, and he cooked all sorts of delicious food for 9 days. And at the end of the retreat, on the last ceremony there, we always, give loving kindness to everybody. And they said, "Where's Carl gone? He was such a great guy. He was really pleasant and kind. When we did the chopping up of the vegetables, he was, just so pleasant to us. And he worked so hard. Where's he gone?" And I announced, well, he's gone back to prison now. He was on work release from prison. And he was in jail for rape. When I said that, just like you, people looking at me, shocked. Ajahn Brahm, you allowed a convicted rapist to come into our retreat center for 9 days to do all the cooking? I said, yes. He's not a rapist. He's done a rape. There's one stupid act, or actually a couple of stupid acts apparently, which was done under the influence of drugs. Does that mean he can't be a good cook and serve other people? Give him that chance. They understood the power of forgiveness. I was taking a risk, I admit that, but I knew that guy. I trusted him, and he did not let me down. We judge people too harshly. Just because you've done something terribly wrong once doesn't mean you're a badly behaved person. And give people the chance. Most people I've found will live up to your trust and be really good people. We don't have the idea of punishment in Buddhism. Instead, we have that everybody makes mistakes. We're all growing in this world. We're learning. We give people the opportunity to grow and make amends for anything bad they did. A lot of people just take that, and they're just amazing just what they do with the chances you present to them. So guilt doesn't have really a place in Buddhism. Punishment doesn't either. Remorse, yes, I shouldn't have done that, I'm really sorry. Great, know that and never do it again. And that's what happens. So with a stream winner, that's part of it. You don't have this terrible thing about wanting to punish others because they've hurt you. You may find that strange, but that's actually what happens. And it also means your sense of self-identity gets less and less and less. That was a difficult thing for myself, I will admit, when I first started coming to Singapore. And I remember one of those big talks which I gave at the Suntec City auditorium. Now you can imagine what it would be like. I was just a monk. And I remember walking in to that hall. There's about 3,000 of you taking your afternoon or evening off and listening to me. Just me, no one else, no backup act, no supporting group, just sitting on a chair like right now and talking to you. And I thought, my goodness, I should get really scared. What if I say the wrong thing? And I just make people turn away from the Dhamma, from Buddhism. And then what if I say the right thing? And then people get inspired. Won't that give me such a huge ego that that's even more dangerous? Because when you sit up here and so many people are looking at you, listening to you, that's a danger of getting a huge ego. One of the things as I walked into that hall, I was scared of those two possibilities, making mistakes or getting a really big ego. And then I realized that I was not going to give the talk. It was Ajahn Chah was going to give the talk, and all of the teachers which I'd known in my life all the people that inspired me. I was just a combination of everything which had influenced me over all those years. And that was just so true. That's something I can trust in. When I give a talk, I don't have notes. Never do. I'm supposed to talk about stream winning, but this is actually what comes out. And I'm not afraid or embarrassed or anything. This is how I remember Ajahn Chah teaching, and all those other people have really influenced me. So what I'm doing, I'm lessening my sense of self. And I know that I don't get anything out of this. The longer I talk, the more tired I get. I'm almost 72 now, and I work very hard. And you do get tired, you do get exhausted. But nevertheless, in my hand, my poor old hand was signing all those books. My poor smile, which always gets photographed. We do that out of joy for you. It's not from ego, not from a sense of self. And that is important, because that's the other part of the being a stream winner, or what stream winning is. The real thing which disappears is this sense of self. But what is that sense of self? You can go philosophizing, but one of the most important parts of a sense of self is what you own. If you own anything, then you can find a self on the other end of that ownership. But if you don't own anything at all, it's like your sense of self vanishes. Little by little by little, it disappears. So I often ask myself, what do I own? You know that physically I don't own anything. How's the time going? Okay. Have I gone over time? No, I'm still going well. A few years ago, you may have heard this story before, I decided to get an Australian Commonwealth healthcare card for seniors. It was only just, why not? It's for free, and if I do get sick, I can use that, and it helps pay some of the bills. Unfortunately, I've never got sick for a long time. But nevertheless, I decided to get one of these Australian Commonwealth healthcare cards. So I went to the online, tapped in a few keywords, and then I got the reply saying, no, you cannot just do this online. You have to come to one of the offices and be interviewed to prove who you are, because they were afraid of identity fraud. I don't know who would like to be me. But anyway, I've got to be careful there. So I had to make an appointment, and I went to this office. It's called Centrelink. And made an appointment. When I rocked up there, I was sitting in front of this woman and said, oh, welcome. Now look, she said, can you prove who you are? And my response, you all know my character. You've seen me so many times. I said, Madam, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, for the last 45 years I've been trying to answer that question. I haven't been able to yet. I can't prove who I am. Thank you for laughing. This woman never laughed. She said, this is serious. I need some ID. And I said, well, what ID? He said, can I see your credit card? I'm a monk, I don't have a credit card. Your bank account details. I don't have a bank account. Your retirement plan or your superannuation, I don't have any of that. Okay, well, where you live, you got your house purchase agreement. I don't own a house. Where do you live? I live in a cave. Well, your rental agreement from the Buddhist Society of West Australia for your cave. I don't have a rental agreement. I don't pay rent. And so they asked me, your driver's license. I don't have a driver's license. And said, the next thing they asked, your marriage certificate. I'm a monk, I'm celibate, I don't get married. And they asked for a few other things like that. And then she looked at me and said, you don't have any of those? And I said, no, I'm being honest, I don't. She said, well, you don't exist. Sorry, I couldn't help this. Sadhu, sadhu, the Buddha was right. It's like that being a monk. All the things which you have, which prove you exist, I don't have that stuff. I'm just glad that you recognize me when I'm at the airport. I have a passport, yeah, passport. Lucky for that. Because I got that when I was very young. So I probably wouldn't be able to get one now. But nevertheless, I thought, this is a wonderful teaching. When you don't exist, you don't have much burdens. You are disappearing. And it's not losing things. It's actually just, who really are you? Everything you think you own, you can't take it with you. Although there was one lawyer once, very clever chap, he found a way to take his wealth with him. He told his wife, he was about to die, in a few days, he's on his deathbed, and he said, I figured it out. What I want you to do is take those 2 big suitcases I have, when I go overseas, take them to the bank, there's plenty of money in the bank, I want you to fill those suitcases up with, what's the biggest currency in the world? Notes. Was it euros? Or pounds or whatever? What's the biggest Singapore note, Bill? $10,000. So he said, go to the bank and fill it up with cash, just $10,000 notes. No hundreds, no 50s, no 20s or anything, no coins, just $10,000 notes. It's quite a few million. There's enough money in there. But then what should I do, said the wife. Then bring it home, and just above my bed in the attic of my house, put the 2 suitcases carefully, just maybe a meter apart, just above my bed. Because my plan is that when I die and go up to heaven, I'll grab the suitcases on the way. and then when I'm in heaven, I can use all the money which I worked so hard for. That was his idea. And his wife, instead of arguing, followed the instructions, filled these 2 suitcases with cash, put them in the room, the attic above his bed, and just left them there. He did die within a couple of days, and she was busy with the funeral and everything. And then after a while, she checked to see if those suitcases were still there. Of course they were still there, full of the cash. And then she said to herself, stupid husband, he should have put those suitcases in the room below his bed, because I knew which way he was going. So anyway, being a stream winner, once you realize you don't own anything at all, really, and you can let everything disappear and fade away, then number 1, it's incredibly easy to get into meditation. What stopped you from going deeper into meditation? Just in the meditation I did earlier, all your responsibilities, your duties, what you think you own, the less you own, the easier it is to meditate. Just like the less luggage you have, the quicker you go through Changi Airport. The lighter you are, the higher you fly. This is actually why the more you disappear, the less you own, the closer you are to being a stream winner. When you are a stream winner, you realize not many lives left. You don't have to do this ever again. You get reborn. How many times has things happened to you which shouldn't have? Sometimes life can be so cruel, so uncertain, so difficult. How many tears have you shed? Can't there be an end of that? And of course, this is the way to eventually end those rebirths, so you never need to be reborn ever again. Free at last. That is what being a stream winner really is. Once you've had enough of these worlds, been here, done that, just like in the Groundhog Day, then maybe you can feel it's a time to be free. I think that's about an hour. Yeah, it is. So, there we go. That's stream winning and how to be a stream winner and what it's like. And for those of you who think, yeah, I don't want to be a stream winner, I want to enjoy life more, be careful. Once you've heard a talk like this, it's gone under your radar. Sorry, it's a bit late now. And I actually mean that, not a joke. Okay, so thank you for listening.